Hi, everybody. Welcome to Campfire Talks, episode 5, season 3, episode 5. Today, we're going to be talking about tips and tricks for hubs and sharing resources. We're glad you're here. We have a few guidelines for our Campfire Talk today. You're going to be having your mic muted if you're not a panelist. And if you have a question, please write that question into the chat. And during the Q&A time, our chat moderators will be collecting those questions and asking those questions to our panelists. Please be respectful in your participation and be present. Speak from your own experience. And once again, we're glad that you're here. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourselves in the chat. Let us know who you are, where you're from, maybe your camp name, anything else that you'd like to add in the chat. So Campfire Talks is hosted by the Camp Network team. We're a team of theme camp community volunteers from Black Rock City. And we're really happy to be here today. This is our 3rd season, like I mentioned, and all of our Campfire Talks are recorded and uploaded onto the Burning Man YouTube channel. We also have a Campfire Talk webpage, which is not completely updated, but we're working on getting that updated. So thanks for introducing yourselves there. It's great to see you here in the chat. Fantastic. Just want to say thanks to our Camp Network team, who has worked hard to produce and put this Campfire Talk on. We have, if you guys want to wave your hands, Camp Network team, we have Regular and Monday who produced today's talk. We have Fox, who is our tech mod. We have Bratty Cat, who is our chat moderator, as well as Epiphany. And then we have a few other of our Camp Network team members here. So again, thanks everybody for being here. So tonight we're going to be talking with our invited speakers about how to share resources more efficiently and ask questions about the HUB's program. We'll hear about from some camps about how things went in 2022 with the HUB's program, and how maybe you can find ways to collaborate with other camps to really cut down on a lot of the stuff that we bring out there, trying to gear towards a sustainable event as much as we can. After our speaker discussions, like I mentioned earlier, we will have time for Q&A, but you can be putting your questions in the whole time in the chat. And again, our chat moderators are collecting those questions. So as those questions come up, please write them in the chat. And let's see. So let me go ahead and start introducing our speakers and our panelists for today. We have a couple of camps who have participated in hubs before, but we also have a couple placers to help you understand more about hubs. And the first one is What's It, who leaves her ranch once a year to live in the 3 o'clock sector. And she's been putting those camps in place for some time and making amazing neighborhoods. She loves her tractor, fire art, and tequila drinks. You and me, sister. So, and our next placer to introduce is Papa Bear, whose first year on the playa was 2005. And by 2007, he was co-leading a theme camp. In 2013, he joined the placement team and was the lead for the 9 o'clock sector from 2014 to 2019. He's now the placement coordinator, supporting the volunteer teams under the placement umbrella. So welcome to you two. Next, we have Wizard. Wizard has been burning since 2014 and is the camp lead of Teddy's since its inception in 2015. He joined placement as mapping support during the pandemic to further dive into his love of maps and help others improve their approach to camp layouts. Next, as one of our panelists, we have Impulse. She's been the co-lead for Jobys since 2015, part of the hub informally since 2019 and formally in 2022. Additionally, she's part of Camp Support, Camp Symposium, Cultural Direction Setting 2.0, which she does partly because she loves her hub and their neighborhood placement. Next, we have Tri-Tip. Tri-Tip is the co-leader of Honest Mistake, a camp that feeds us with bison and tri-tip. He's been to the playa every year since 2008, skipping only 2020. He's been leading camps every year since 2011. Welcome. Thank you. Next, we have Red. Red is a founder of Petting Zoo, one of Black Rock's oldest bars on the 2 o'clock side. This year will be his 23rd burn and the bar's 20th trip to the playa, serving cold drinks through the beloved soda fountain. So do we have Half Stash? Did Half Stash make it in, y'all? No. Okay, we have another presenter who is snowed in Tahoe, and Half Stash may be joining us later if he can get connected, but he's having some trouble with some connectivity. So thank you for being here, and let's get going. Let's get started. So to kind of prime our conversation, we actually have a few questions for you, our participants, our 49 participants. Thanks for being here. And the first one is, did your camp participate in hubs in 2022? So let us know, anybody in the chat, if you participated in hubs. We got one yes. And are you planning to participate? We got no, we got yep. Oh, good. So we've got a couple of yeses. Are you planning to participate in hubs in 2022? Or 2023. That's what year we are. That's the next question. Good. Planning for 2023, haven't? Great. We're really hoping that the information that you get today is going to help you plan for hubs and get some good ideas. And our last question for you participants is, what are some of the resources that your camp is interested in sharing? For example, water or power, transportation, storage, trash, recycling, bikes. Go ahead and write in the chat what your camp may be interested in sharing, what resources. Thank you. Great. Great. Looks good. All right, so our first segment is going to be to give an overview of the Hubs program for 2023. And we're going to be talking to What's It and to Papa Bear, our placers for the org, for them to give us a little of the history of Hubs, what's changing for 2023, and basically what y'all need to know in order to do hubs. So go for it. Papa Bear and What's It?
We didn't practice this earlier, I guess. So Hubs came out of the Sustainability Initiative, the 30-year roadmap, and was mostly designed by Level during the pandemic, and sort of presented it to the placement team. And we started with a form That was just a basic Google form that I think it was about 90 camps filled it out. And I can't remember exactly how many hubs we ended up with, somewhere around 30 or 40 hubs out of those 90 camps. And it was a really good test run. The main issue being that it was in a spreadsheet in a Google form, which is kind of a pain in the ass to track and work with. And so the big thing that we've done this year is put it in the place camp questionnaire. So that's the big change, is now when you go to fill out the questionnaire, all those hubs questions are there, which makes it easier for us to consolidate all the information and make sure we're looking at all the right spots for where to put you. And that's the biggest change, is really just now it's more integrated within our normal systems, because it was a good trial run, a good first year. What do you want to talk about because you play some hubs.
Yeah. Now that you've talked about the boring administrative stuff, we really actually like hubs in the placement department. We like that you can share your resources. We like that you're not necessarily having to haul in a shower if somebody else is bringing a shower, and you can arrange that ahead of time. Generators, get one generator to serve all 2, 3, 4 camps, what have you. It gets a little challenging when the hub gets so big that you get hard to place. So pay attention to that. We'll probably be talking about that later on. But hubs, it's a smart, good thing. It's something that camps have been asking for several years. Being able to lower your carbon footprint, being able to gang up together to find lower cost ways of meeting your individual camp needs. We're really excited about it. We're hoping that we'll see more hubs this year than we saw even last year. So if you're thinking about doing a hub, please go for it. Try for it. And this is another thing too. If you file in at first and say, yes, you know what, I'm going to do a hub with these couple of camps, and it just doesn't work out, something falls through, you can always talk to us and you can change that up and say, you know what, we were going to do a hub, but then, so-and-so decided he's going to Italy, what have you. You can change things later on. So don't let that stop you from coming in and saying, yes, we're interested in doing a hub.
I have a question.
Okay, so I throw one thing out there real quick first, though, is that the timeline has changed too. If you were looking at hubs last year, we had a little bit more time for you to fill out forms. But because it is complicated, we're expecting more hubs. You need to have that. It's integrated with the questionnaire. So March 30th is the deadline. And really that should include support camps. I know support camps technically have an April 20th deadline to get their questionnaire in. But if you want to be a support camp and be in a hub, please be done by March 30th so that we can be reviewing all the camps that are in a hub starting at the beginning of April.
When you were talking about the ability to perhaps change our neighbor or kind of adjust our requests for hubs. As a camp lead, I noticed in the camp questionnaire, you're asking us to provide our layout for each camp. How specific does that need to be in the placement questionnaire? Is that something that we could sketch out together? Or do you really want something that's really specific? Because I noticed that there's quite a few criteria. Can you just talk a little bit more about what you're looking for in those layouts for us when we're looking to share resources?
Yeah, when you send in a hub request and we look at it as a placement team, especially during mapping, that's the art of it. We have to fit you within certain spaces. So the more flexible you can be with your hub layout, and right on there, if you can be flexible, this is where we really want our generator, and this is how we'd like to be around it. But, if you have to shift us, talk to us, and we will generally do that if we have to shift you within your preferred hub layout. Sorry, the cat attacked me, and so now I'm having cat issues. I guess that's my main message, is just be flexible, be as detailed as you can. Don't go overboard. We are, as a team, we're probably the most detailed team on Playa. paying attention to all your moving bits and parts, but it is an ongoing conversation. If we have questions about something, hey, would you be cool if we swap these two? Or even, hey, we swapped these two. You guys can deal with that, right? When you guys come back and say, yes, that really helps us out. That helps out the community. Because when we do move your hub around, and it will happen a little bit, what we're trying to do primarily is match up where your power sources are with each of the individual camps involved with your interactivity levels. Interactivity levels with us, super important. It's the #1 criteria. We look at your interactivity levels, we look at your size, we look at what you're doing for the size of the camp you are. And if you have a member of your hub that's maybe a little less interactive than the others, we're going to need the ability to put them in an area that is more suitable for that interactivity level. So if you're an Esplanade camp sharing with someone who has 3 hours of interactivity a week, we might have to have a conversation about that. You might need to put them on your backside. Obviously, you're not going to want to try to put them on Esplanade. Maybe they go on an avenue if they're particularly lovely. But there's so many details in play that it's really difficult to give you a hard and fast answer. It's an art, it's a dance, it's a waltz with all of your information and trying to fit you in. But through it all, we really are trying to give you what you need to do that hub, but at the same time, we're going to need you to be flexible with us as well, and be willing to work with us to make sure everybody gets what they need.
I think also on that is if you're doing a hub, the questionnaire has 2 layout uploads, and one is your individual camp plan, and that's the detailed camp plan you're probably used to having sent to us for a long time. Like, where's my generator? Where's my interactivity space? Blah, blah, blah. The hub layout can be a lot less detailed. It can be just like a general overhead view, but like what it was saying, we really want to know what the power is, where the service lanes are going to be, all those kinds of things that would affect if we did need to Tetris you a little bit differently. How would we screw you up? Or would it work out? So just make sure you're pointing out to us those important conjunctions and adjacencies of your different camps and why, so we know to not mess with it too much. Oh, one other thing too, while we're talking about this, is that you do need to realize how much square footage there is in a block too. So you can't just send us 30 camps that are all on one block because it might not fit. So pay attention to that. Esplanade is generally 400 feet deep and 800 feet long, something like that. That's not quite 1,000. The average block is 1,000 feet along the circumference, the circular part, and then 250 feet deep. So imagine when you're doing those hub layouts that you want to be able to fit within a 1,000 by 250. Right.
And another detail, just riffing off of Papa there. First of all, we're not going to try to fuck you up. Secondly, if you do try to design an Esplanade block for us, and go for it if that's your heart desire, design that block. If we feel that that's not going to be a good fit for that neighborhood, you're going to end up back on the double block area, which I believe is G2 or F to H now, something like that. F to G. Gosh, it's been like 4 months since I've been on Playa.
Eda F.
Eda F, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, well, thank you. What's it you have frozen? Hopefully
Bigger, that may be where you end up if you get a really huge hub. So heads up on that, keep your interactivity up.
Great. Thanks, you two. Thanks for that. Anything else that you'd like to add before we move on to talking to our camps? We will be coming back to you with questions, but is there anything else you'd like to add? You're good? All right. Thanks. All right, so now we're going to take the perspective of camps. So we have Red, Half Stash is not here, sorry. Red and Tri-Tip. They worked in a hub together in 2022 and were able to share resources. So I'd like to give them an opportunity to share their experience as camps and what they did to make it work and make it wonderful, what you learned, challenges, successes. Go for it.
Sure. I'll jump in. So Red's with Petting Zoo, and they've always been at the corner of 230 and A, and we've been next door at like 215 and A, and we've been kind of a community for a number of years. It's just been nice camping with them, and we had explored the thought of being a village with another camp before pandemic hit, and our concern was the loss of autonomy. And so we already had a good working relationship with each other, but when the hubs came up, it made it really natural for us. And context to what we're sharing, it's quite a bit. We do builds together. Red has some unique skills that are valuable for us, and I help Red out some other areas that are good for him, keeping his ideas reasonable. But we share transportation now. The hubs enabled us to get a shared unit in Fernley. So I went from my camp went from a 5x8 storage. We're now in a shared 10x20. So not everything's piled up on each other. We shared a generator. We are a grill camp. Like you heard, I love to barbecue and cook and feed people. I hated doing a bar. Petting Zoo is a bar, and it really allowed us to kind of co-host events where we're doing the cooking, and if it's mayhem, go over to the bar and have a drink and chill out, and we'll bring food over to the bar. So it allowed us to share events and everything. We shared a kitchen, water, freezer, gasoline was a big deal. I can tell you, like, we all know stuff happens on the playa, and we got each other out of some tight, we had a trailer get left, and we were able to find collaboratively a way to get it off the trailer because we were going to the same storage unit. So Red, that's how much we share. Like it is, and there's one thing I can say is that there's a lot of trust and communication going on between us. We were on phones probably 2 to 3 times a week talking about the planning in order to make sure we hit it off well. Red,
Can I just interrupt to ask what the size of both of your camps are? Because I think that will help us to get kind of a...
we had 22 tickets. So 20 people, 22.
22 people. And Red, how many in your camp?
We were graciously gifted 8 last year through honest mistake to get us back out on the playa. But if you're talking dimension wise, we were in a 75 by 100, I believe.
Yeah, I'm thinking more of how many people. So when you're thinking about the resources, like what the camp size is.
Yeah, when all was said and done, we probably squeezed in 20 something people onto our land that were like orphans or burners that had camps imploded last minute and were like, I need somewhere to go. So I think we probably ended up about 20 people squeezed into our little bit of property. Great.
Yeah. So Red, go ahead and share your ideas.
I mean, there's not much more to cover. Pickett really nailed most of them. We shared virtually everything this year. It made it so much easier. And the synergy between our 2 camps is probably different than other camps in some ways. Whereas he's now not trying to run a bar and a barbecue. So all of that money that would have been diverted towards alcohol or beer now went back to being able to buy more steak to feed more people. And then he picked up the generator, which then let me run the bar, and we paid for gas. And so there was a lot of back and forth that just kind of worked between our 2 groups, and sharing the storage and, getting the WAPs and rolling out there. We only had 8, so it was really great to be able to rely on manpower from his camp when they were done with their build or something else, and being able to just, everybody kind of came together and really pulled it off last year.
But I like the fact we're able to keep our own identities. I never in my wildest dreams, I hated doing the bar. Like being near one, I hate doing it. I thought this was something that when we heard about the hubs, we were immediately on the phone talking with each other about what this allowed us to each focus on and give up. And I think I hope that plays out over the long term, as allowing us to just get better as a camp for what we do.
Any other things that you'd like to add? Anything that was hard? I mean, was there, I mean, you mentioned the time that that you needed to invest. Do you think that you'll be investing less time this year because you kind of have something started?
Tickets are tough, right? Like we're normally 30 and I'm gonna say we're honest mistake is taking a year off. It's just, it was hard. Last year was hard for a lot of reasons, and yet it went so well. The hubs were one of the things that we were just like so happy with. But there does need to be a break in it. And we know that that's a challenge, is the tickets are just brutal. It's hard to say what last year was, 14 years on the playa, and I don't know how others felt. I get in the arguments that 17 was worse. I don't think so. I think this was the hardest year in 14 years. I honestly think we would have broken if it weren't for the hubs. So that is unique, but it really did allow us to keep focused on what we do, but also know in a time of need, there was another group that we could just go right next to and talk to. And it was, honestly, it helped us. We were doing a lot of planning and collaborating, probably more on the stuff that's fun, is what are we going to do when we get there and how are we going to set stuff up? And I don't know how other people feel, but that's typically for me when the excitement kicks in, you get what's this, what are we going to manifest? And it is things like, where do you put, Red has a 250-gallon water container. Where do you put that? Because once it's there, you can't move it. Where do we put the generator? Where do we put the bar, the shade? So I think there's a lot of stuff I'd encourage, if you're hubbing and you're going to be near people, doing with people you like and respect, and it's a gift back to you. So
I think on the downside of that, though, if you're in a situation where a hub goes wrong, it may spectacularly go wrong in some instances. We could have had an issue last year, but we got lucky and it got handled. But I could easily see that happening. If you're hubbing with a camp out of sheer necessity versus like this is someone you want to work with and trust.
Risk of bringing one generator is one generator.
Very true.
Benefit of having an extended team is who has a trailer hitch. And we found 2 extra. So it's those would be things I think we all know is like when we're planning it. Yeah, one generator is one generator. We got a 5,000 watt Westinghouse, which enabled us. We have DJs play, and we need that for the music. But we were able to set up a single kitchen, and I'll tell you, imagine just one kitchen for 40 people, which is, instead of having to have 2 kitchens for 40 people. Yeah, it was a mess at the end of the week. And we cook, so I know how to do the kitchen cleanup fairly well. But that actually created more space that would have normally gone into another small camp, is having a 10 by 20 that they didn't have to have. And we were able to have it. We have a single freezer, an oven and stuff like that. And then obviously the barbecue stuff. So that did free up on stuff. And I do think, looking back, it drove people to collaborate more on dinners and shared meals at times, which I thought was kind of nice. But that's anecdotal. We didn't mandate anything there.
The thing that I'm thinking of is that while we're out there on the playa, and I agree, last year was a tough year, and for a number of reasons, but to kind of get to know your neighbors better. So 2023, a motivation, if we're not in a hub for 2023, I can see kind of what you're saying, to connect even more with your neighbor, to try to see if this is a person people nearby, if they're a camp or people that you would be interested in doing a hub with perhaps in 24. Because
I'm
I think
biased.
what you're
We have the
saying,
best neighborhood in the world. I mean, music visitor. I got on my
Absolutely.
bike, I think 3 times last year. I'd walk down to OT. It was awesome. Like, governance creates an awesome neighborhood. So I'm
yay,
very biased.
wonderful. Wonderful. Well, let's add Impulse to our conversation. And Impulse is from Joby, as she mentioned earlier. Impulse, what's the size of your camp?
Our camp runs 20 to 25 most years. 30 is our top end.
Okay. And so, yeah, why don't you tell us about your experience in 2022 and what you're thinking about for 2023?
All right. Well, Joby Coffee Tier Me, we're 9 o'clock and B-ish and have been around that neighborhood for quite a while. And we knew our hub mates, the camps we hubbed up with really well by that point. We had been around each other. Tyler from Dark Sparkle is actually on here and is one of our hub mates. And we had a part of our group had even had a retreat in 2020 in the before times, actually like the weekend before everything closed, with the idea of getting together and how do we share resources better? How do we make a better experience for people coming in? How do, as burnt out camp leads, do we support each other better? It was so close to shut down that actually one of the camp leads ended up living with us for 3 weeks because they couldn't get home. So we're all fairly close, and we're a group of 5 in our hub. It's Joby, 7 Deadly Sins, Clue Bar, Beignet, or not Beignets, Blitzkrieg, and Dark Sparkle, who's here. And this year we're all camps, all those camps are about the same size, 20, 25, 30-ish. For the most part, we're kind of in that range. So we're relatively small camps. We've all been in the neighborhood for quite a while. This year, we've got one of the camps taking a year off. We're going to add probably 2 other small ones. We're going to add a small beignet camp of 5 to 7 people, and we're going to add pollinator station, who's going to be 5 people, and 3 of those are children. So 3 half pints in there with us. We are, yeah, somebody's pointing out we're across the way from Noah Gretzky's. And with them and donuts, we're kind of, I think Monday called us the breakfast club. So we have between us, all of ours, we have service at all different times of the day, starting first thing in the morning, running through 7 Deadlies, being a late night bar. There's always something going on, and it kind of cascades through the day, which is a great way to have, a service in that area constantly going on. But we coordinated on making sure everybody in the hub had tickets, everybody had vehicle passes that they needed. We run from Northern California through, well, last year it was through Bend, Oregon was our most northerly one. So we coordinated on making sure one camp didn't have enough bike space coming in, so they went with another camp. Things like that, making sure all the materials got in, everybody had a ride in, all the pieces were there to make it work. And then on site, we coordinated on things like one of the camps had new infrastructure. So everybody stops and goes to try to build the infrastructure for an hour or 2 until we gave up and then had to build a new part. But everybody was there to constantly help each other. Clue Bar still has a couple polls, I think, from Joby this year. So it was really more like living with your friends and just helping each other out. This year, we'll have done it for a year. We've got a little bit earlier coordination. 3 of our camps are moving to containers. We're going to be a container cult over in our corner over there. And so we'll be trying to figure out how do we better do water? How do we do gray water removal? If we're not taking things in and out in the same ways we had been previously. We'll still continue to coordinate on, tickets and getting people to and from, and lot lines when we were there, who's going to be placed where. We borrow gear back and forth. So for us, it's very much cementing our neighborhood feel, I feel like.
And you met all of these people in the neighborhood before, so that's the foundation, similar to Red and Tri-Tip, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, we've always, oh, go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, go.
I was gonna say, kind of like Red and Tri-Tip, we'd seen each other for years. You know, you see these people, you go every year and you maybe see some of them off playa, but most of them you see once a year. You look forward to seeing each other, you build these friendships. Sometimes there's some real world overlap that's a little bit weird. You know, one of the people I work with went with Dark Sparkle years ago. You start finding those, you know, off playa meets, but it's really the having seen each other every year and just knowing that they were solid camps, solid groups. They were going to do what they said. They were always going to show up if we needed help.
It's really awesome knowing that you can count on your neighbors and what they're going to do and what their plan to bring to the playa is. I know multiple years we've tried to get coffee camps and other food camps around us. So it's kind of like, you know, we're the bar, and then Pickett's got the barbecue, and then, you know, you get your coffee in the morning. And so we've always tried to make like that 230 and A sector kind of interactive food and drink area.
So Impulse, any challenges or you know, words of wisdom from your experience? We asked Red and Tri-Tip that same question. Anything you'd like to share regarding what you've learned over this time of doing it, and kind of what you wish you'd known at the onset?
I think when we first had our retreat in 2020 with the idea of doing this, there were other camps, and some of them didn't make it through the in-between years. They aren't coming back, or they aren't coming back with the same leadership, but they're still around. So I think for us, a lot of it has been identifying beyond our hub, even our friends that we want to coordinate with, and really getting to know them better. Because even though we want to hub up together, you know, the whole neighborhood is pretty good together, and learning who's around, what they're going to offer. A little bit like Red said, who's doing what when, how do we all do it better so it's a better experience for everybody coming in as part of it. Weird things like we coordinated our frontage lighting along the plaza that we're on, so that when people came in at night, it would be you'd get a look, you know, things like that.
You mentioned Impulse. We did a retreat also. It was 3 or 4 camps. And as you were talking, it was like that melding of the minds where everybody, we got an Airbnb in Pacifica, and everybody came in and shared their ideas, and you could kind of start telling who really was good at something, and people had ideas that they hadn't really manifested yet. And I think that would be an encouragement I'd make to folks. If you're thinking about it, find a place to spend a weekend together and just have fun. And I think you'll be surprised. That was, we were planning for the village, but out of that, when the hubs came, there was all these natural things that flowed out of those discussions.
I think for us, you know, we looked at the idea of a village with a couple of camps in the past, and villaging wasn't for us, but this kind of walks a nice line.
Yeah. Completely agree.
I think it was Tri-Tip who brought up, or both of Tri-Tip and Red brought up, the issue of tickets, and how does that affect? If you could talk more about how you kind of have a contingency plan around who's actually going to show up on playa when you're organizing your hub. That's for all of you.
Last year was a little easier
right now.
Yeah. I mean, this year is going to pose its own separate challenges that last year didn't have. But I mean, I think one of the toughest parts is, you know, if you receive X from placement, but you want to do Y, like, how do you guarantee that you get the land that you need if you don't have the required number of people at the time to get that land? I don't know. I mean, I have a lot of questions about that, but I don't want to like sidetrack this conversation.
Yeah, this is the smallest camp we've done. We've always strived to be right at about 30, so like 28, 32, but not more. I had a camp 4 48, and I self-acknowledged lost a lot of the culture to it, and it became too difficult. 20, when I say bare minimum, we financially asked a lot of people, and that's not sustainable. So I don't know what the answer is. I do know is that we'll have to balance that with future years about what we would like to do and then what we're able to do. You can imagine, like, we did 250 pounds of tri-tip and 100 pounds of bison. That's not cheap. And Red does the bar, and there isn't an easy answer to this. But I will say, when we did tickets, I knew when Red was desperate, like we gave 8 of ours to 8 of our normal ones to them so that they could get reestablished. They had a snafu, and we helped them get reestablished. Went through the network. And I think we all know this, is that when people say, "Oh, am I going to get a ticket?" It's like, there's always tickets. You just got to be committed to going and staying focused, and they always show up. We were at the last minute, and Venice Red Lights, I know on here, we were organizing tickets for them to get there. And that's one of the nice things about the hub, is that it expands you into a different but still strong network to balance that. But it is, I mean, I think we all should recognize it gets scary as you get towards the end. What are you going to do? And we came out fine, but it's something we're going to need to think about in coming years.
For us, for Joby, we're committed that, well, we get the tickets we get in the directed group sales, which is great. And then everybody in Joby is to consistently be seeking out tickets. Everybody, even if they're not coming that year, everybody who can goes into the lottery. Everybody who can is asking around. And our goal is we cover our camp, then we cover our hub, then we cover others in the neighborhood. So that if we find more than we need. Last year, we had somebody in our camp who had to drop out last minute, family emergency, couldn't do it. So we make sure you get it goes in that order. We're covered. We put it out to the hub. We put it out to the neighborhood. So it's, everybody is seeking tickets until we are all covered. That's our goal on that. Yeah, and doing meat is expensive. We did it for a couple of years, and we'd love to do it again. We're doing a big art project this year instead. But yeah, it takes a lot of people to keep meat going.
Yeah, fun.
Same issue with the bar. It's a year after year consumable cost. So I go through probably $1,000 in liquor and probably 700 something in beer and seltzer. And that doesn't even include like the soda boxes that I use to run through the soda fountain. But that thing's a lifesaver. It reduces so much recycling and trash that has to come out of the playa. It's fantastic. The cardboard box and a plastic bag when it's done, instead of like 250 cranberry bottles or whatever, pineapple juice or whatever it may be.
Well, I'll put out there, doing slow drip coffee. It's just a lot of very large coffee bags and all the people go with it. But it sounds like we each do what we do, and we commit to that, and we do it well. And that's part of, hubbing up, finding the people who do what they do really well.
And I like the fact that you're thinking, that you brought up the idea of sustainability and, how can we conserve? How can we use less? How can we simplify? And what you're doing, and again, the investment's a little complicated. It feels like how it is on the playa. As a camp lead, there's a tremendous amount of work that we do at the, before we even get out to the playa. But if you do that, it's an investment, it pays off. And it feels like with what you're doing as well in this goal of trying to green our burn, that this is very much contributing. And it's actually very inspiring to hear how this is taking that step to green our burn.
I was inspired by the green name because the year prior, we had still been using like regular bottles of mix to run the bar, and we came home with probably 125 bags of trash and recycling. But luckily, this guy Daryl, if you're listening, you saved us. Thank you. He took a lot of our recycling and saved us. But the following year, I bought the soda fountain because it's just not sustainable to have that much plastic waste out there.
Mm-hmm.
Well, for us, it's a lot of our people in camp, and even through our hub, we have a lot of people working in nonprofits working in government agencies. So they're all people very committed to doing good in the world and extending that through the hub with trying to think of ways we can all share and not waste. Super important.
Mhm. And the strengthening of the neighborhood. Once again, that's what I'm hearing from you as well, is just this great strengthening of the community that is our neighborhoods and beyond, off the playa as well.
We'd originally planned 3, somebody in back, so on B would back up to us. And that there was a little sharing there, but it really ended up being between us and petting zoo. But that was a nice thing of it definitely drives more collaboration before, and which when you land, it's like you're home, see more of your friends. So that really was, there are a lot of just great things about it.
Awesome. And if someone's just starting out and wanting to do a hub this year, would you have any advice of, maybe a couple of tips of people who are just starting out, things to remember or a place to start? Like, what would you start with a generator or with structure, or any thoughts around that?
Tri-tip, you got this?
I was going to say transportation. We rent a box truck and a trailer, so transportation would be one. If it breaks down, you have a challenge, but that is a big one. And I think oftentimes you'll find some people in the camp that are better able to drive larger vehicles. The generator was a huge surprise for us. We knew we needed to upgrade, and it was really nice to get more use out of that. And that goes with gasoline, which is a pain in the ass. So those would be the ones that I would say. My strong advice is, and Red and I were talking about this the last week, hub up with people that you know and trust and can have a good communication. I love the hub concept. I'd be leery doing it with somebody that I just randomly drew straws on, because there's so much trust that goes into this that could go. So those would be the ones that came to mind.
I kind of think it's a little bit like our camp. We're really specific about who comes into our camp. We're a very close camp because we're small, and all the camps around us, for the most part, are fairly close camps that have had a lot of campers that come back regularly. So for us, it was important to know them, and then to start talking early. We are there's just an email earlier today trying to figure out when we can get on Zoom together and talk about some of these issues. And then we on our last Zoom, we kind of went through what systems are we each thinking we need support on or could offer help on.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd like to do another retreat if we can figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
I know it's only February, but it feels like there's not a lot of time between now and then.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But yeah, I'd love to get more time, and I think that's important. The people that you can get a little bit of FaceTime with and really get to enjoy and feel like you kind of have each other's backs. That'd be important.
And I could see too, maybe you have someone that who's starting a new camp, and it would be a great way to mentor them. So not only, have that hub, but another way to mentor them around acculturation, how to do it, quote unquote, right. So when you mentioned Impulse about a couple of the camps that are quite small, it seems like, it would be, again, if the trust is there, that relationship is there, that would be also kind of an easier way to do it than trying to coordinate very large camps. I'm thinking of 270 person camps or something. It might be more complicated. So again, starting small, keeping it simple, kind of a theme that seems to be coming up again and again.
Well, and you said about the small ones, I'm involved with camp support. If you are a new camp or you're a camp that's having some trouble or some questions, camp support is a great way to go in and find a mentor and get somebody who will just help guide you through a lot of it. With that, one of the camps that's hubbing with us this time, I was their mentor last year. And we've become close friends. And he is the project manager on our art piece. We've got a lot of, coordination. So, but there are second year camp, which is a different process than being a first year camp. Now they're looking at placement and tickets and different timelines and stuff. So bringing them in a little bit closer is part of that.
Right, camp, which is the mentoring program. So yeah, a great resource for new camps, veteran camps who need a little bit more support. So thanks for bringing that up. So is there anything else that you four, or you three, there's four of us in the boxes, so there's three of you talking. Anything else that you'd like to bring up? Anything that you'd like to share for the benefit of our participants here today?
I think I'm set. Hubs
Yeah.
are great. Just choose
Hubs
your
are
hub
great.
mates wisely.
Great.
Yeah.
I think it really allows camps to shine and do what they want to do if they can pair up with someone where they're trying to just scrape by. If like I really want to do pancakes, but also a bar, it's a lot easier to just go all in on pancakes and find someone that wants to do a bar.
Right. Perfect.
Yeah, I put out there that we're all a little insane being either organizers or placement or different things here. There's a level of insanity and of control that we all have doing that. And finding the people that you can lean on for the parts that aren't super important, personally to you, so that you do it better together and for each other was great for us, especially last year. Last year was hard.
Really well said.
Mhm.
Really well said.
Fantastic. Well, you'll have a chance to answer some questions. There's been quite a few questions in the chat, so you'll have an answer to come back and answer some questions. But for now, we're gonna switch to Wizard, our mapping wizard. And so we're going to talk to a Wizard and Papa Bear. So we will spotlight those two and we will shift gears, and then we'll come all back together to for our Q&A. So do we have Wizard coming on as well? Here we go. All right. So Wizard is a volunteer on the mapping team. And we're hoping that Wizard and Papa Bear could provide just a little bit more insight into this, this idea of how we map, or how the hubs are mapped. And just, helping, again, giving some tips and advice to camps as they consider their layouts and where they're going to be. So is there a slide? Was there a slide to share?
Yes, it's in the slide deck too.
All right.
Box, do you have that? Or Monday?
So there'll be a slide in a moment. Meanwhile, while we're waiting, Wizard, do you want to just tell us a little bit about mapping and what you do? I think it'd be really interesting for people to hear. It's a great opportunity. So while we're waiting for that slide, please.
Yeah, so mostly I'm taking a look at all the individual camp layouts and the hub layouts and making sure that they meet the requirements of, like, for example, one of the biggest things that we look for is service roads and fire lanes, just making sure that you have something that petrols can be happy with, or that if you're getting like RVs serviced or something, that service trucks are going to be able to drive down there effectively. And then we're also checking to make sure that your camp dimensions make sense relative to your population and your interactivity. And specifically for, looks like this is still loading. Yes, specifically for hubs, I can go over some of the requirements that we're looking for. It says that like a rough overhead of your entire hub is okay. Personally, I do like to see a little bit more granularity within the map. So you want to label like your entire hub dimensions. You want to label the individual camp dimensions within the hub. And you want to indicate the camp frontages for each camp, and like where your public zones are, where your private zones are. Um,
Yeah, it looks like our
Still loading here,
slide
yeah.
is not loading. So not sure. I was curious, Wizard, how many people are on the mapping team?
Yeah, so currently it's actually just 3. I think we're maybe looking at adding another one. So I was the mapping support for 7:30 and 9 o'clock, which was kind of a lot of maps to look at. It was like, I don't know, 600 individual camp maps or something crazy like that. So you really see a lot of like variation with how people are doing things. If I had a couple requests for people, would be that you use like a 2-scale map. So I've actually created a couple versions of a template on the camp layouts page. So there's an Illustrator template if you use Illustrator. If you don't have Illustrator, there's a Figma template on there as well. So that just has like some commonly used items and like some commonly used camp sizes and stuff. And Figma is something that you can use for free. So I'd love to see more of those, just because it's like 2-scale. It's based on like a 10-foot by 10-foot grid. So you can just like copy paste that based on the size of your camp. And then, you know, make your items like the right sizes based on that like 2-scale thing. It's like, if you can, like, don't try not to use like a 4-foot scale. I think there was one camp that did things by like a 4-foot grid. It was like really hard to look at that and fit that into the other camp maps. And then something else to note is that placement maps in blocks of 50 by 50. So like, don't be sending in a camp map that's like 40 feet by 60 feet. It should fit into a 50 by 50. There's some exceptions for 15,000 square foot camps, I think, where it's like 75 by 100 feet, if I remember correctly. But that's like kind of a bit of an exception. So there's not a ton of camps that have that dimension.
Okay, Papa Bear, do you wanna, is this your slide up at this point?
Well, it's your slide, but I beat Monday to screen sharing it. So I had it
Okay,
up on my
all right, do you
browser.
wanna,
Yeah, I mean, he kind of covered it earlier. We were talking about the full dimensions of blocks, and so I could reiterate that, because on the slide it shows that you know, Esplanade to A is 400 feet deep, and the average circumference, like it says, 1,000 feet, and so that's really important to think about again when you're collecting camps to form into a giant hub, is that you can't put that many camps in one block if you're over that amount of space. And I actually let me really quickly drop a link in the chat you guys might not have ready to go. I've stopped sharing for a second. And it is it's the 2022 BlackRock City Plan, and this will get updated for 2023. You'll be able, if you go to the Burning Man website and get yourself to the BlackRock City Guide again, eventually it'll say 2023 right there. And at the bottom, that last paragraph, they do tell you what the depths are of the blocks. And so if something gets updated between this meeting we're having right now and when the finalized city plan is out, you can check back there. I don't know exactly when that city plan comes out, but just FYI, there's a spot to go and find those dimensions to look at in the future.
I'm also going to add the camp layouts page link in there. So there's a lot of like really important information that people should follow when submitting either a camp layout or a hubs layout. That also has the templates that I mentioned linked on it. And actually it has a couple examples of like what we might consider like good camp layouts that have the right information.
all right, any additional information? Are we able to get Wizard's slide up, or?
I thought that was it, right?
Yeah, I think that was the
Yeah.
slide. It was from the
Okay.
deck.
Yeah.
All right, great,
The
great.
other thing I would mention is the like the file type. I know it's kind of a silly one, but I make sure that it's basically just like a JPEG, a PNG, or a PDF. Like, please don't send like a slideshow, or like, I don't know. We've gotten some weird file types, and then we have to go back and request that we get sent a new one. And also labeling, like with your camp name and your camp lead and your contact information. I think we're still requiring that, right, Papa Bear?
Yes, we're working on not requiring that, but yes, we're requiring that still.
Okay, but for now,
Make
like,
sure.
please do that. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's really helpful for us.
We're,
And then we
we're
don't
trying
have
to simplify stuff over here for everybody, including us, you and us,
Yeah.
where we can. I think one last thought to think about for the mapping is try to imagine yourself as a placer when you're forming your hub, and think about what does that camp you're forming with, and your camp. Would you place that camp that you're hubbing with? Would you place them on an avenue? Would you place them on a street? Think about that when you're coordinating and wanting to put camps in, and send us a layout of where you think these camps in your hub should go. Put a placer brain on if you can, because we're going to be looking at it in that way too. That's kind of like what it was saying a little bit earlier. And so be ready for some change, because if it might happen, it might not, but we may need to move some stuff around based on what's the level of interactivity at something like camp. We may have to move your hub farther back in the city or more forward. So try to imagine yourself as a placer and think about how would you design the city in a block, and that might help when you send us a layout.
Great, thank you. Anything that you'd like to add, Wizard, to what you've already said?
I think that's mostly it. I mean, really, like the big things are like where are your generators, where are your fuel zones. Like that's like one of the first things that we look for. Like if you have a service lane, like is it 20 feet? Does it go straight through the block? Like petrol's trucks, they don't back up. They have to be able to drive straight through from one street to another street, or do some kind of like really big loop or something like that. So make sure that if you're having a service road that you're meeting the requirements. Otherwise, we're gonna have to ask you to like revise the map, or Petrol will ask you to revise the map. And that's pretty important.
It sounds like you have a lot of good resources, and I know that they've been getting linked repeatedly here in the chat. So it sounds like there's a lot of good resources for people to find for creating their layout and getting more information. And Papa Bear, I thought that was a great idea to look at last year's or 2022's map as well, map of the city, to get a sense of how things were laid out at that time. All right, if you don't have anything else to add, I think we can move to questions. So if we can bring all of the panelists, if we can spotlight all of the panelists, and our chat mod, that's right. We're a little ahead of schedule with our questions, but that's fine. And we'll start asking questions.
All right. Our first question is a follow-up for Papa Bear and Wizard from Alex. If one of the more established camps can expect better placement, while in hub, both camps may be placed in the worst location, is there any way to discuss or at least be warned before just being placed?
Was the question if was the question if one camp be placed in a really awesome position and the other camp wouldn't be, and you got moved back? Is there a chance for discussion before the announcement of placement? Is that the question? Yeah.
Yes.
It really depends on your placers. And honestly, Wizard and I aren't placers. What's it? Do you want to answer that question?
I would love to answer that question. Okay, if one of the more established camps can expect better placement while in hub, both camps may be placed in the worst location. Is there any way to discuss or at least be warned? First, I want to address the assumption in there that the more established camp is going to get better placement. And there's two things I want to really quickly address, because we are here to discuss hubs. One is that we don't place camps based on whether you're established or not. We don't really, if it's your 20th year, cool. If it's your second year, right on. It does make an impact on whether you've actually been able to perform and do what you say you're going to do. That's important. But we really look at your interactivity level. If you're a second year camp and you were able to bring it the first year, we're going to trust that you're going to be able to bring it the second year. So don't always think that your more established camp is going to be the one that gets better placement. Second, better placement is relative. I know a lot of people have a tendency to think closer to the inner playa or outer playa is better. You know what? I have camps that ask for J&K because they want that neighborhood feel. For them, that is better placement. I have people who don't want to be on an avenue. They want to be on a street. so that they have more interaction that's slower moving. For them, that's better placement. So be real careful with your language, especially around your campmates. All right, because what may be better for you is not necessarily better for other people or for other camps. And we're trying to really make the best fit for everybody. So that aside, if you're in hub with a camp who is less interactive or has a completely different sort of vibe than you do, we're going to try to place you so that the neighborhoods around you match that vibe, match that level of interactivity, which may be, that your butts are butted up together in the middle of the block, instead of side by side, or you're around the corner from each other, but touching instead of, side by side or back to back. So we're still going to try to build the best possible neighborhood for you. But if one of the camps that you hub with has basically no interactivity, you should probably have a talk with them before they send in their placement application. Sorry, placement questionnaire. Because it's important. Interactivity, number one thing we're looking at, along with your size and how you look from the front. Did that answer your question?
Alex, did that answer your question? Yes. Okay, great. Thank you. Our next question is from Sander. Can two theme camps that form a village hub up with another non-village theme camp?
That one I can take. Yes. We have in fact already had a village hub up with a smaller camp, an individual theme camp or a support camp last year. So there's nothing stopping a village from hubbing with a independent camp.
Right
Tell
on.
us the questionnaire. Go tell us the questionnaire.
All right, great. I have a more general question from Chris. How should we think about a village versus a hub versus requesting to be next to a camp? Can we hear how to think about that again?
Oh my God, I want to take that one too. Can I take that one too?
Yeah.
And actually, Mike earlier kind of hit on it when he was talking about why he liked the hubs, and a major part of it is identity. It's also a resource distribution. So with a village, you have this meta sort of name, right? Like AEZ or Barbie Death Village, and also the mayor, one individual who fills out that big, large village questionnaire. They're getting all the tickets, all the WAPs, and they're distributing those to all the camps within the village. And the camps in the village, they still have their own name, and we're requiring all camps in the village to fill out a questionnaire now. So we're getting better track of how many camps there are out there and what their names are, but still they're not individually on the map. So the village identity is really the village with a bunch of camps in it, and the mayor's in charge of those resources. With a hub, each of the individual camps keep their own identity, they're on the map itself, and they're in control of all their own resources, all their own tickets, all their own WAPs. An independent camp requesting to be near another camp, that's the same thing as a hub, other than there might be some changes. So a hub is like, we are trying to prioritize hubs in terms of you are resource sharing, that kind of thing. If you are asking to be near a camp and you're not actually forming a hub, you may not get adjacency, but you might also get adjacency. It might be around the block. It might be that, hey, you know what, actually your camp's really better over in 3 o'clock and that camp's better over in 9 o'clock, and that could be a decision. But when we have always taken it very seriously when a camp asks, we want to be neighbor with this camp because, even before hubs, and we pay attention and we look at that information and we try to make your dreams come true. That's our job. We're here to support you. So hubs sort of cements that bond and is all really about camp adjacency. I think someone asked that question earlier too. It's about being adjacent because you are sharing things that require adjacency. Whereas requesting to be a neighbor, which you still can in the questionnaire without being a hub, is more about like, I would like to be near them. Adjacent would be great, but I just need to be near them. And you can even check a box that says I do need adjacency, but for transportation or something, it's okay if they're around the corner and we're sharing a truck, because we just move that truck over and unload the next spot. So that's kind of difference. Identity, resources, and adjacency stuff.
Great, thanks, Papa Bear. Can I ask you, to sum up again in different words, because this is all very new and I want to hear.
Too long.
We're all wrapping our minds around it. Yeah.
The differences are identity and resources going to
Okay.
one individual to distribute in a village versus the independent camps who control themselves. I mean, that's the main thing right there. And then not being in a hub or not being in a village, you can still request to be near or be adjacent. So really, it's all about identity and resources. And we've actually workshopped this. What's the difference between villages and hubs? We've talked about it a whole lot. And we've landed on that as some of the major reasons.
Cool. Thank you. Okay, our next question comes from Jane. Outside of the obvious power, water, gray water, transportation, what are some of the other resources that hubs share or have shared?
Well, we're looking at sharing service areas.
We did the kitchen. We were looking at doing a shower area if we did one.
We coordinated and we'll probably share some on continuous lighting plans this year. So there's a feel to the area.
I don't know how folks feel about this, but we've invested in they're cheap. They're like $150. They're freezers from Costco. They're super light. And you can buy temperature, auto cutoff temperature. You can keep one as a freezer and one as a fridge. And let me tell you how much it has saved us in ice, in cooler space. And you keep one frozen and we just tell people, yeah, you got your beer, dump it in there. It's cold within an hour, bring it over to the cooler. It's great for drinks. It's a train wreck for food, but that's something that you could share with a lot of people. These are like 2 or 3 cubic feet, 4 cubic feet. So
fuel depot space. That's what I did with my hub. We were a small 50 by 100. And so to meet the regulations on that with the safety perimeter means we'd lose a huge chunk of our space at a fuel depot. So being able to share a fuel depot with a larger camp next door was really important. Gave us enough room to have our people.
Yeah, Klubar was able to. Yeah, how do you find the space if you're tiny without sharing?
So in building camp infrastructure or expanding it, Red and I pooled resources and bought together for bigger negotiation when we were buying conduit and stuff like that. And it's $20 a stick now, so it's real money.
Nice.
We've also sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, Impulse.
I was going to say we've also shared campers, which sounds a little bit odd, but like we've had, we have a camp that's not coming this year, and some of their campers may be placed with other camps in our hub for the year, so that they know they have consistent friends and a place to go. Joby has a lot of younger people, late teens, early 20s, and we've had their parents go with Klubar a couple of times now. So they're close, but they're not with them. We've moved campers around to the places that make sense also, which I guess we could do it outside of there, but there's some comfort in we know that camp's okay.
The options are limitless.
There's an interactivity component to it as well. Like I was in a hub with our neighbor camp, and they did like a bar takeover, and a music takeover in our camp lounge from midnight to 4 a.m. every night, which allowed my camp to sort of extend our interactivity past what we were originally planning on doing internally.
We tried doing that with Jurassic Park. They had their own their generator went out, but we love the idea of camp takeover. I have a grill. Don't bring another grill. Bring yourselves and your good attitude, and it feeds on it. And and it was fun planning it. I'd like to see if we can pull that one off in future years.
That's a really awesome collaborative spirit when you can do that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And I got to say, it's probably more refreshing to do an event at someone else's camp than yours, where it's just can we get out of here, please?
Tri-Tip, didn't Cirque du Lish throw a Taco Tuesday party on?
Yeah, they did. Cirque du Lish did Tuesdays. They did tacos, and so they did about 50 pounds of chicken tacos. So that was another one that allowed them to host some food. So we did have food stuff every day.
I'm gonna interrupt real quickly because I want to mention something when people say the takeover. We're all for takeovers. We think they're lots of fun. But if you go into a hub and you say, you know what, we need to be a hub with Camp Camp What's It, because we're going over and all of our interactivity is over in Camp What's It's camp. You're not going to get placed.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you that right now. The camp that has no interactivity in their camp space. So to do the takeover, that's fantastic, but keep interactivity up in your own camp within your hub. And the reason for that is when we place camps, we're trying to build neighborhoods. And that means people have this interactivity going up. And if somebody walks past a bunch of RVs and now there's this little dark hole where nothing ever happens, and you have to keep going another little ways, that's what we're trying to eliminate, is those little dark holes. So do the takeovers 100%. We love those. Do the on playa, interactivities and projects and things, but make sure your own place at home in your camp is still hopping.
Right on. Thanks, What's It?
That was my question. You posted and you guys all gave awesome feedback. So thank you. But I just had a quick question for Impulse. When you say service areas, did you mean your community interactivity areas, or were you referring to something else?
Service with our community interactivity. We've got a bunch of breakfast groups. If we can figure out, and we haven't quite figured out the layout to do it, that we would be like, our service would be like right from one to the other to the other. Right now you kind of go around a corner and down to do it. But like if we were like, coffee is here and blintzes are here and beignets are here kind of thing. And then we've got our big seating area and they've got a seating area, if you're just kind of like able to see it all from one, that's one of the things we want to do by hubbing up, is like have a whole.
So like sharing that frontage space.
Yeah.
Even
if it's not like a pointed one, it's like sets of tables going down the row.
Cool. Thank you.
All right, we have several more questions queued up here. The first one is from Greg. If placed with a new camp with more RVs and less interactivity than us, we may be placed farther away from the center because of hubbing with them than we would be by ourselves, correct? Who's going to take that question?
That's probably me, because it's actually, mapping where the camps go. It's the neighborhood building. And I would say maybe, I know, wouldn't it be nice to have a set and firm answer? We're not wild about RV butts going down the main road, and we're actively working with camps who have RV butts up alongside the road. Again, we're looking at interactivity. So if you're an established camp with a lot of interactivity and your killer and you know that you will make the neighborhood pop, talk to that little new camp who thinks, oh, you know what, we're going to have a whole bunch of RVs and almost no interactivity, and be like, dude, up your interactivity, put all of your RVs not on the frontage. Maybe just help them with frontage, get some lights up so when people walk by at night, it's really pretty, and send us pictures of your test build so that placement can look at your frontage and be like, wow, for a first year camp, they're really trying here, because that's going to help you as a highly interactive established camp get the placement that you really want, no matter where that is within the city.
I want to add on like the RV wall things that's coming up is,
yeah,
we understand servicing. It's good to have them. If your service road doesn't work out well, it's good to have them on a road for servicing. They are a natural, amazing wind block. All those kinds of reasons to create these walls that are so ugly and everybody hates. And so if you really have to have a wall because of that's how your design is working for servicing or for windbreaks, try to figure out how to decorate those RVs. Can you put up some crazy tapestries? Can you put art? Can you do something along that public thoroughfare so that people walking by and biking by are looking at beauty as opposed to your ugly ass RV? That's a huge change. It would be great to see.
Thanks, Papa Bear. Our next question is also from Greg. What happens if a hubs camp does not get placement at all? Is that possible? Will hubbing together affect whether they will be placed in the first place? If they do not get placed, how will we be affected?
I can answer that because we
Okay.
actually had this happen last year. We had a couple of people want to be in a hub, and one of the camps had very low interactivity, especially for their size, and they eventually ended up not getting placed. And we placed the rest of that hub together. So just because one of the camps you're interested in hubbing with, you know, if their interactivity is so low that they're not going to get placed, then you know what, you're still going to get placed. That doesn't eliminate you by any means. But we would hope that you would talk amongst yourselves. Oh, so what are you doing for interactivity? Oh, really? You're doing 2 hours 1 day a week? You know, and have a little discussion with them, have a little heart to heart, because they're going to listen to you probably even more than they listen to us. You're their buddy. So do that. It doesn't affect being in a hub, does not give you, I don't know, placement points. You know, yes, we're definitely going to place you because you're in a hub. Oh my gosh, no, you're just making our life more difficult. It makes it less likely. No, none of that. We're looking at you as a camp, each individual camp in your hub as camps, and we are evaluating and seeing how you're best going to work in your neighborhoods according to what it is you're doing. And the last thing, if they do not get placed, how will we be affected? You won't be affected at all. That's, yeah, we're not going to hurt you because somebody else did or didn't do something.
Right on. Thanks, Watson. Our next question is from Crystal. Have you seen a large scale camp successfully hub with another smaller or medium sized camp? What did they share?
Do you want to take that, Papa Bear?
No, I was actually going to ask you to take it if you had one or not, because
Yeah, I was thinking I have seen successful hubs. The large camp that hubbed with them had other problems unrelated to the hub, but the hub worked out great. They were a very large Esplanade camp. They had, I want to say, some art support camps on their backside, and they helped provide power. They helped provide a kitchen. They helped provide food storage, and bathrooms and shower space for these art support camps. And it worked out really, really well. The art support camps looked really, really happy. And I'm betting that the larger camp was actually able to help defray some of their expenses, which worked out really nice for all three camps.
Can I add on to that? Because I'm sort of a medium-sized camp. We're about 60 people, and then we hubbed with a very small camp of 5 people. This is 50 by 50, and it actually worked out great for them because they were able to take a power tap off of our diesel generator, and they used our gray water tank and stuff that they probably would have never been able to afford on their own as a 5-person camp. So it can be really, I think, beneficial for very small camps. And plus for us, it allowed us to put because we have avenue frontage and we had almost nothing in the street. So it allowed us to have a cool thing on the street that was nearby.
Thank you, Wizard. All right, our next question comes from Abby. Do camps in a hub have to be contiguously placed, or can they just share things like transport?
Yeah, I was kind of talking about that earlier, and that hubs were designed for adjacency because we imagine that you need to either sharing power or you're sharing tools right there, or you're walking over to dump your gray water, or you're sharing a kitchen. And like I said earlier, you can still request to be near a camp, and we write those notes down and we take that very seriously. So if adjacency is not your thing, just tell us who you want to be neighbors with, and make sure that other camp does it also. Don't do a hub. And we'll write those notes down and we'll try to get you within really close to each other, if not adjacent also. But just to let us know. But hubs are really all about adjacency for sure.
Thanks for clearing that up. All right. Eddie asks, what advice would you give to smaller camps who want to coordinate as a hub when one camp is a newer place camp and less established than the other?
I think that's me again. Get your interactivity up. Hey, have we heard that word before? Interactivity. And if you get a chance, fly your freaking freak flag. We want to hear how you are super freaky and how your freakiness is different from all the other camps' freakiness. Okay, is your thing sitting with your sewing machine and fixing people's furry jackets? That is fantastic interactivity. Where on Playa are you going to find sewing machines and somebody willing to sew your freaking button back on? I mean, it doesn't even require all that much prep, but that is so unique that we're interested in that. Okay, fly your freak flag. Maybe you like taking gourds and drilling little holes in them and making lanterns. Well, we're going to want to know about the MOOP quotient, but tell us about that. Fly that freak flag, especially if you're a new little camp. Being new isn't bad. Being little isn't bad. We love little camps. Little camps are easy to place. Oh my gosh, if I could take 3 and turn it into all little camps, that would be so exciting. It's not going to happen, and that's okay. I like the big camps too, but just think about it. Don't be scared to be small. Don't be scared to be freaky. Don't be scared to be unique. That's what we love.
And if you can identify and define that about yourself, I guarantee it's good enough. Right? Yeah. Okay, our next question is from Fox. To Tri-Tip and Red, how big of a generator did you use? Going back in our talk a bit.
We got I think it was a Westinghouse or a Westinghouse clone 5,000 watt. So
Nothing crazy.
nothing crazy, nothing crazy. And I think we were able to get all day red on a
Yeah,
tank.
I mean, the big difference is that the generator is going to be used to like run the AC and multiple RVs. You're going to need like a 10,000
Yeah.
watt to actually handle that.
Yeah, that's not, this was just for the camp. So it was DJ booths, the Red needs it for the bar,
Soda fountain.
the soda fountain. It was charging our batteries. So we bring some 2 deep sink batteries out so that we don't have to run generators at night. The freezer and refrigerator, it gets that stuff all generated during the day. And we've found that once the fridge and freezer are cold for the day, you don't really need to worry about them overnight. So
I can sort of speak to the larger size thing of that. So my camp, we were in a hub with 2 other camps, and we rented like a 50 kVA diesel generator, which is something that probably on our own is a little bit too big for us, and we wouldn't have necessarily been able to afford. But being able to split the cost with another camp, and just like running like a full power distro allowed us to like cover all of the air conditioners and like the RVs and the camp frontage, and also have 24/7 uptime for a more reasonable cost.
Thanks, Wizard. Do we have time for another question, or are we out of time, Peta?
Let's do one more question. This will be our last question, and then we'll wrap it up. Thank you, Epiphany.
Sure. This is from Cynthia. We are an established bar camp of 30 to 40 people. We're planning to be home for a new sound card this year. Should we have had them apply to have their own support camp and then form a hub?
I was actually type in chat to respond to that once we're out of questions. So really how we look at what type of camp you are is like, what's your primary focus? So as a theme camp, your primary focus and what you're spending most of your energies on should be the in-camp interactivity. As a mutant vehicle support camp, your primary focus is working on that mutant vehicle and getting it out there and driving around and picking people up. So if this mutant vehicle joining your theme camp is not going to shift the balance, the primary focus away from your in-camp interactivity, you can just be a theme camp with a mutant vehicle. There's plenty of theme camps with mutant vehicles. If this is a big mutant vehicle, it's going to pull a lot of attention away from your work on your in-camp interactivity. When we're looking at your questionnaire as a whole thing, then you might want to split off and do a hub. So basically, when we're reading your questionnaire, what's the primary focus that we're going to read about? What are we seeing that's going on? And as long as it's your in-camp interactivity, you're a theme camp, you're under our purview with that. If it's something else, then you're an art support and you're talking to Artery more, or you're a mutant vehicle.
All right. Well, thank you for all of your questions, and thank you for all of your answers. Thank you to our panelists. I'm so glad that you showed up today. We really appreciate you being here, and especially our placers who volunteer so much of their time as well to make our city beautiful, our mapping wizard. My goodness, amazing that there's only 3 people on that team. So again, thank you to everybody. I want to say that please fill out the feedback form. I think it's been coming into the chat for our Campfire Talks. And do you know that we've got our camp symposium coming up on March 18th? There is information that's come out about it, and please register. It's going to be a fantastic day. It's Saturday, March 18th from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. The afternoon will be breakout sessions, which are basically little campfire talks with lots of different topics that we're going to be addressing. So we hope to see you there. The Campfire Talk Season 3 will be continuing in April and May and June. We'll have some great content to bring to you. So stay tuned for that as well. And yeah, thank you everybody for coming. And I really appreciate your participation.